2023 regular school board. Mr. Leeds, thank you, Mr. Fulham. Call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Ms. Hagedorn? Aye. And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And will Nancy, will you please do the roll call?
Mr. Grant?
Present?
Mrs. Hagedorn? Here. Mr. Carpenter?
Present.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mr. Fulham?
Present.
All right, thank you. Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.4, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes. We recommend the addition of item 1.1, appointment of the treasurer pro tem for the purpose of recording minutes.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Please call the
Yes.
All right, please look at it and go to the, you click on the site and go down to bottom of paragraph 4. There's a website to go into that gives you the changes to the Ohio Department of Education with the new workforce part that's under the governor, and it tells you what each section is going to do. And they're going to, in October, they're going to put this into place. It's going to take 90 days to get it set up. But the Ohio Department of Education, the workforce section will be under the Senate, but they don't know who's going to be the head of it yet. But it's going to be fun, I guess. And I mean that in a laughing manner, because Senate they don't impress me a bit. But anyway, that's what it's going to be. And it's going to be, it tells how the current powers and duties of the State Board of Education would be divided, staffing and all that. I was going to make a comment tonight on the taxes going on, but I think Mr. Busker's going to have a section on that, so we're going to get that to him. And that's basically all I got, because they're on recess up there.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Looks like Mr. Guido, I just got a text from him. It looks like he thought he was remembering 6:30, so he messed up on his calendar. Anyway, we'll move on to 2.3, finance. And I don't think we will have.
No, we didn't have any
finance,
meetings tonight.
with Mrs. Cahill out, so we'll move on to 2.4, student achievement.
Okay, so student achievement. I'd like to start out with the entire district had started out with staggered start times, and it worked out very well for the students, parents, and teachers. And the primary had a fantastic start of the year, and students have adjusted well and are actively learning and getting down to business. Then the elementary, the second graders have done an amazing job transitioning to the new building and learning all the new routines. And all students are working hard to learn the PBIS B expectations and are earning Happy Hornets every day. Our sixth graders have shown amazing maturity by transitioning to the middle school style schedule where they have 4 different teachers. That's a huge transition for them. The junior high had a staggered start time, was a success. Students received the additional support as they successfully transitioned to using lockers, traveling to more classrooms, and operating in a setting that was very new to them. I know when I had that transition, it was a challenge. We stood in the junior high hallway for half an hour trying to figure out how to use those lockers. So that's a true challenge for the students. The 8th graders are currently being inducted into the National Junior Honor Society, those who qualified and applied, and that ceremony is scheduled for September 5th. The high school has started out with a good stride, with very little issues with getting everyone in the building and getting the year started. I'd also like to highlight the student section at the first home football game, where they were very respectful and went above and beyond by cleaning up the seating area after the game, even asking Mr. Prohaska if it was clean enough. I don't think that's ever happened before, so good for them. I'd also like to mention that the marching band is putting on a great show. They're playing very well together, and the color guard is putting on a great show as well. They even had 4 guard members debut using their rifle this past Friday's game versus Wyoming. So I highly suggest to come to a football game and to see that show. It's going to be good this year. That's all.
All right, very good. Excellent. All right, moving on to 2.5, MEA.
All good. Just appreciate everybody's effort in having the school year start off smooth, great transition. So central office, building administrators, teachers, they're all doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to section 3, comments from the communications, comments from the public. Seeing none, we will move on to 3.2, presentation.
All right, at this time, we have Mr. Markham. He is going to talk a little bit about our new district website. Mr. Silverman's going to talk about the new athletic website a little bit, and then Mr. Markham's also going to talk about the updated branding guide that he's been working on for a while here. Yes.
Sweaty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. You guys hear me okay? Am I coming through on here? All right, so as I'm sure all of you have noticed, there is a new website for the school district as of about 2.5 months ago. Has everybody had a chance to kind of look through it and test it out and break it, that sort of thing? Yeah. I know a few people have reached out with a few errors that they've spotted already, and that's great because it's sort of a work in progress, and we're finding a lot of things as we go. So I just wanted to touch on a couple big points rather than go into the nitty-gritty details. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have. I'm sure that Robert, Jesse, I don't know if Tony's hiding somewhere, but one of us can answer your questions. We've all been kind of working collaboratively to get this off the ground and continuing to get better. So first up, the new content management system that we have is very user-friendly. That was something that we've struggled with in the past. A lot of people weren't able to make changes on the website on a regular basis, so we had a lot of outdated information, bad links, and that sort of thing. That's something we're actively working to improve, but so far I've met with 2 different schools to kind of walk them through the process of editing, and they've already taken off. So primary building, for example, I think before I left, they had already updated all the photo sliders on their page. It's that easy to use, and so I think that that's a great thing. Another thing, obviously difficult to not notice, is the new layout, and it is a responsive design. So that's actually a screenshot from my phone that I took earlier today to kind of demonstrate what that looks like. Even if you're on a desktop computer and you go ahead and take the corners and you shrink it, you can stretch it any way that you want, that website will automatically size to make it more optimal for viewing. So you don't lose the menu buttons, you don't lose a lot of the navigation elements that you would. Previously, that was another big pain point, if you recall. A lot of things were getting stretched, you couldn't find what you were looking for, so that's a huge improvement as well. There are several embedded tools that are going to make the website a lot more navigable for our families. First up, we have a lot of ADA stuff that's built in, alt text in all of our images. The WCAG guidelines are all embedded into the framework of the website, which is great because we don't have to address that with Band-Aid fixes down the road. And the translation tools, we have Google Translate that's now embedded right in the top right corner of the page, and I'll kind of show you where that is if you haven't seen that yet. And then lastly, the dark site, And what this is should the need ever arise in a crisis communications type scenario, that we want to shut down the website and consolidate where everyone is going to share the most updated information. We have a timestamp feature, so anytime you go to Monroe Local Schools, it does not matter what that backslash is. However you get to the district website, it will actually funnel you to what's called a dark site, and it'll allow us to provide constant communication and updates to any public that's looking there or waiting there for it. So Cinda, if you don't mind to kind of toggle to the next one. This is just kind of the current homepage as it sits today. As I mentioned, we're still working through a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. I feel like we're finding new things every day. As Robert said, we're getting 1% better every day. So I'm trying to stay on top of that. Feel free to reach out if you ever notice anything at all that needs to be improved or fixed. As you can see there, the translation tool in the top right. I won't make you go through the whole stretching and skewing of things, but if you want to toggle to the next one, that shows an example of a school page. It's formatted a little bit differently. This is great as well. We have all of our school contacts on here. I think Melissa's name just got clipped at the bottom there, but something that is a little different on the school pages that you'll notice is you'll see the circulating advertisements on the right and the bottom of the page, and that's something that we're trialing as well, but so far it's, I think, been pretty well received, and that's helping subsidize the cost of the website as well to some extent, which I think you guys are familiar with. And then, if you want to go to the next page for me. And then next, I shared something with you, and first and foremost, I want to apologize. This is already out of date. I printed it this afternoon, but we've got a new iteration that just came out, hot off the press. So this is something that it's still very much a living document, but we're getting closer. So the rationale behind this is shortly after I came to Monroe, I started to notice that there were a lot of different iterations of our logo. I think I had a difficult time identifying which one was the de facto Monroe logo in terms of the hornet and the M. And so, I did a little bit of research, and somebody I think had shared with me early on, it may have been Robert, the video of Chuck Wowie and Paul, the old band director, who took it upon themselves to create the hornet back in 1955. And I noticed that there's a lot of differences that have happened over the years. He's had different haircuts. He's had different color wings. I think there's also some inadvertent hand gestures which have been spotted on some variations. But the thing about it is our logo is the first thing that people see and recognize when they see our district, and it represents all that we do. And so I thought that it was important to kind of rein in all of these different variations, kind of go back to square one and evaluate what it is that we want to put out and what is that going to look like on a consistent basis. So Robert and I decided to create some brand consistency and started to standardize what those visual guidelines would look like. We partnered with a local design firm, and what we actually did was we completely, from the ground up, redrew and redesigned all of the logos. So the best part about this is, I think that scares a lot of people, but looking at it, 9 out of 10 people will not notice any difference. And that's kind of on purpose, obviously. So if you want to pivot over to the next one, I'll kind of share what that new lockup looks like in terms of the district font, the new typography that we are using. Again, very, very subtle changes to the Monroe Hornet, but if you put them side by side, you'll start to see little things here and there. It looks like the shading in between the feet. It looks like the spacing around the letter M, even the fists and the detail in the fingers and that sort of thing. So that's been all redrawn from the ground up. The teeth, yes. The teeth were different. Even are we calling it a nose? Even the nose of the hornet there was pointed in some, rounded in some others. So I kind of kept looking back. I sort of kept a page earmarked of the original logo from 1955, and I said, which one's closer? And so we tried to kind of err on that side. That said, it's not spot on. I think the Stinger has a few subtle differences, but that's how granular we got with the detail of looking at what it is we want this logo to look like and where have we gone wrong in the past, sort of thing. If you want to go to the next one, and I'm not going to go through page by page, these are some highlights, so if you have any questions, feel free. These are just a few different logo variations of our primary logo that include the district title. And then you can go to the next one as well. A few examples of some incorrect logo usage, certainly not all of them, but we don't want to necessarily single a lot of people out. this has happened over the course of, decades of people copying, pasting, kind of making their own iterations, and it just sort of happens. And I think this is, it kind of shows the importance of why it's a good time to get back to basics and create these standard guidelines that everybody has access to, that's understandable as well in this format. The academic seal, and this is also still a work in progress, a few slight tweaks to make to this. This is sort of a new thing. I'm not sure if this has existed historically, but I know that we did pull from the old senior crest. We also pulled sort of some inspiration from the old, and I may pronounce it wrong, is it Molito High? Anyone? Am I saying that right? Molito High? No. Monroe Township High School, I think they used to have sort of a, it's not an acronym, but I saw it on a historical yearbook. But anyway, this sort of draws...
What was it again?
Molito High.
No.
I'm going to feel like a fool if I made that up. I've seen it in a yearbook back in the Historical Society, and that's what they called it. It's M-O-L-E- I've already forgotten. But anyway, that's where sort of some of that comes from. And then if you want to go to the next one for me, Cinda. This is something as well that we had a leg up here. AJ's done a lot of work to help sort of standardize this and get this idea off the ground. And what we wanted to do was standardize our club and athletic logos, and really any of our extracurricular clubs, so they are instantly synonymous with Monroe. I think we have a lot of differences right now. If you go on Twitter, for example, and look at the different sports teams, they all have their own unique logo, but none of them are in the same family, if that makes sense. So this is a way for us to really bring that all in and start to create a template that can be used for a lot of different platforms. And then the next one is just kind of a rehashing of the color palette. This has been simplified as well. We actually had a yellow and a gold in the old one. We decided for simplicity and for telling people, well, no, not that yellow, not that gold. Let's stick with two colors. So we're going to keep it as simple as possible. So here you see the Monroe yellow and the Monroe blue.
The projection, it looks a little faded.
Yeah, I will say...
A little more gold.
Yeah, I will say that even the printed version is slightly off, but that's again why we went with the specific colors here with Pantone, and it makes it a lot easier, and there's no room for confusion there. And then I believe the last slide is just an overview of the typography that we went with. So you'll see here this Akira Expanded, which is the Monroe local schools, and then the Avenir is going to be our standard body copy, which is very similar to Arial. And actually in the rules it says if you don't have access to that, to use Arial. So again, we try to make it as simple as possible for people to process and use. And I think we're still making baby steps towards that goal, but open to any questions, concerns, feedback that you guys might have at this point. But I will share the most updated one with you as I get back to my computer. So.
Good job.
No?
Yeah.
Very good.
Everything looks really good. So once we get these finalized, I know one of the big things is making it available to media outlets and other people that might need to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Will we have a centralized area on the site that has downloadable graphics?
Yes. So I don't necessarily have an exact image of what that's going to look like yet, but I do want a dedicated page on the website that will contain all of the resource files that you need. We want to make it available to as many people as possible. I mean, there's all kinds of sports teams that are local that use this. There's our partner vendors. There's PTA. There's all sorts of different associations, and I want to make it available, not have to jump through hoops to get to it. So.
I don't know if you remember when we started this whole process, we even looked into trademarking it, but found out that it has been somebody stole it and
In Iowa?
trademarked it in, is it Idaho or Iowa or?
I think it was Iowa,
I
wasn't
think
it?
it's Iowa.
I think it's Iowa.
I believe it's a college in Iowa.
Small college in Iowa.
And in talking with the
Yeah, it's a
graphic design
terrible
team,
rendition.
It's
It
a
does
cheap
not-
rendition.
Yeah.
They,
They did a terrible job of stealing it.
And they're the bees, they're not even a horn.
right,
So,
they recommend that we should
The fighting
that we should
bees.
fight them on that and say, we would really appreciate it if you stopped using that, and kind of show them our reasoning behind it. Obviously, we have the video and the drawings from 1955 to prove that it is originally ours. So, yeah, that's something that I'm going to entertain pursuing a little bit. So,
Good, make a college change your name. I like it.
yeah, anonymous, right? But yeah, is there anything else that anybody would like to know, or feel free to
No,
email me
looks good.
or reach out afterwards?
Great job.
Yep, very
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Yep, thank you.
Eric, are you coming to do the athletic piece here?
So, thank you. So this year, we partnered with ESP Media to relaunch the athletic website in addition to the district website. ESP has a strong presence here in Southwest Ohio, especially in the high school athletic area. Other schools that they partner with for websites are Moeller, Princeton, Lebanon, Wyoming. So they do a really nice job, and what's nice about them is they're really kind of all-in-one support for us. So they, in a way, kind of serve as a pseudo sports information director. One of the challenges that we had on the previous website, which the challenge was on our end, is constantly loading content and having the manpower and the staffing to continually, if you're going to have something out there, you want to make sure that you're providing updated content that's not being stagnant. And one of the things they do is they do a great job of taking things from a simple Twitter post and making it into a story on the website. So, for example, the picture right here, Join the Boosters, was literally just something I tweeted out onto our school Twitter account at the football scrimmage against Baden, and just said, hey, it's not too late to join the Boosters. They take that, and now they're building content on the website. So that's been a really nice piece. It's kind of a just resource to have for us. We can still send them stuff. We do regularly of, hey, can you put this on? Can you update this, that, and the other? But they do that unsolicited to help keep fresh content on the website. Other neat things, they have features that are on the website. You can see at the bottom here, they've got the scrolling menu bar for upcoming events, and then also other events or activities that have come on. So one thing that they also do is we do a weekly podcast with them just to highlight what happened the week before and what is coming up this upcoming week. So as you go back, you can see today, this was today's podcast that I did with him, oh, that's the 16th. We do it every Monday, and we did one today that will be on there this afternoon, this evening. So that's just, again, something unique and fresh and to help do that. What we've also expanded out, when you click on the teams, so we'll go to football, for example, the schedule is a much more visibly, aesthetically pleasing schedule.
Yes.
So we'll come down here, we'll have logos of the teams we're playing. They'll either find the results online, like normally varsity football on a Friday night, they'll see that, they'll plug it right in for us, but then our coaches will also send a quick email and have the scores updated that way too. So keeping that information active as well. Location, and again, just the logos brings a nice visual appeal to it. Up here, we've got the schedules for all the sub-varsity teams that we support, but then for like the varsity again, on here, we'll go down to the roster, for example, and we've got the team photo up there. Load. And we've put our senior pictures up there of our senior players, and then we've got our roster listed as well. So that was one thing the athletic boosters have brainstormed with us as well. They're going away from the print program. It just, over the last 5 or 6 years, the sales have not been justifiable to the cost of production. So they asked, well, the biggest features of it, what are some things we can do with that the people who are buying it, a lot of times it's their senior parents, they want to see their senior picture, those types of things. So relocating some of that content onto the website has been a nice add-on as well. So we've got team photos on there, we have individual photos. Tickets can be purchased from here, as well as links to all the other schools in our league, and their ticket links under the athletic end. Just different types of information for us, links to the Southwestern Buckeye League, the OHSAA. We've got our coaches directory on here, participation fee information, athletic handbook, just general information, important dates and stuff that would be useful for our families and athletes and coaches. And then we have our fan zone where this links to BSN. They've got a team shop for us up there that if someone wanted to purchase some spirit wear. We've also got information on our facilities. Different pictures there. So a lot of just different features and unique informational items that our community can really go through. Record books, our athletes who have continued on in college, booster information. And then our sports medicine information as well through Premier and different forms that they may need, such as, hopefully we don't need that form, we won't even say the word, but the concussion form as well, all there for, are easily accessible for our parents and athletes should they need it. So overall, it has been awesome. Again, it's a first-class website. We do have the ability to sell advertising on there. We're getting rolling on that as well. So there's opportunities. You can see right here, for example, that we're going to pursue to try and create an additional revenue stream as well. But really, it's been a wonderful asset. We've had a lot of positive feedback. Nice, catchy name, HornetCountry.com, but it links directly from the school website as well. So. All right.
No, I was on it today, looking at it, and compared to the old site, trying to find schedules.
Yeah.
This is so much, and the schedules look really good.
The one thing that is cool as well is right here, you can actually do a composite calendar, as you say that. So I know our boosters like that. They can check out what's coming up for the week ahead and concessions and all that, but it's a monthly view of different things as well. So, but the individual schedules are nice to sort out, go team by team, and, so.
Another cool thing I'll point out about the schedules is you can actually import those into your own calendar. So like if you have a player, your child's on a sport, or you want to follow a particular sport, you can actually sign up through like a Google Calendar and have that syndicated onto your calendar, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about ESP Media, who we're working with, I mean, I was a little leery at first, just because, kind of handing over the control of, hey, I'm going to need something updated. How long is it going to be? And literally, I think one time I was checking something and I sent an email at like midnight, and 7 a.m. it was updated. They're very responsive. It's during the day. It's normally within maybe an hour at the most. I mean, so working with them has been really, really great experience, and they've done a great job. They actually broadcast the game Friday night at Wyoming through Wyoming's website, and then again, they're linking that right there for content. So they're trying to build it and help us gravitate and bring people to the website, which is really cool. So.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Very much. Appreciate it.
Both of those websites are really good because, the majority of people look for stuff on their phones, and I don't know if you remember the other one, nothing showed up, and they're both very user-friendly on your phones. And just the fact, the schedules, that I won't have to call my in-laws and say, here's where the game is, I can, hey, here's the schedule, just go to the website, so, just, that was well worth it right there.
Yep, very nice.
Good job.
Hey, before we move on to 3.3, superintendent's business, I'd like to backtrack.
Yes.
And have an update from Butler Tech.
I guess.
Thanks, Mr. Guido.
I dropped my keys. Apologize.
Gets the best of us, right?
Oh, great, how are you?
Hi, thank you.
So, Mr. President, Madam Vice President, Superintendent, I had promised Debbie, we had talked a few months ago about some data that I was gathering. To help you do that, I got to put my readers on here so I can see it. What I have provided you guys is kind of a historical snapshot of enrollment through Monroe and Butler Tech. A lot of data there. I don't want to go through every bit of this for you guys, but some things I do want to point out. If you look down on page 2, down towards the bottom, you can look at our district market share with the district. So I've highlighted it here. It's 57% of our students here that are eligible to attend some sort of Butler Tech programming do attend. So basically that's out of, I think it was 1,217 students at the junior high and high school. 57% of them do somewhat attend Butler Tech. If you go one column over and you look at the previous years, 72%, and then 21, 22, it was 70%. I was like, well, why is there such a huge difference in what those are? COVID caused a lot of enrollment through those programs, and so now we're starting to level back down. And if you look at the other districts side by side, you can see they're pretty similar to what they are. I would like to kind of go all the way to the very end. 25% of our entire district has some sort of Butler Tech programming. We do some middle school programs. There's an engineering program that is in that, so that's why those numbers are a little bit different. 699 students currently are in or receiving some sort of Butler Tech program. Campus enrollment, D. Russell Lee, Bioscience, Natural Science Center, all of those is 142 students currently. So a lot of opportunities for Monroe students is what I really want to point out there. And then there's historical data that goes all the way back to 2014 that is on there. I would say that over the years, the relationship has grown. I think that we have grown people in Monroe, and certainly our counselors, teachers, everybody involved have seen the value in a lot of the programming that we offer, and that has affected our enrollment into those programs in a positive way. And second of all, the need for additional programming. Robert, since you've came on board, that's been a topic of discussion. It was with Kathy, it was with Phil, and so I think our biggest limiting factor right now for satellite programming here at the high school is space. I think if we had additional space, you would probably open up other opportunities, and I continue to push for that to happen, but let's be realistic. I mean, we don't want to take away from a classroom that we are using for one of our at-home programs. So I think that'll grow. I was interested that we're in the top probably 3 or 4% of enrollment. Some of the career tech centers, if you look at page 2 again, some of them have career tech centers on their campus. Northwest School District, for example, 27% of their entire school district has some sort of programming, but they have a full career tech center there. Hamilton as well has a full career tech center there. So I think that what that says is that our students are understanding, and they do have access and are being successful throughout a lot of our programs. If you look at the last page, I have highlighted all of the programs that, out of all the students that are at one of our career tech programs, these are the programs that they are taking. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 30 different career paths that they are taking currently for enrollment. Now, these numbers aren't completely final because we are so new in the school year, but it'll give you a good snapshot of where we're at.
Very good.
Awesome,
Any questions?
awesome. Yeah.
The school got off without a hitch, and I thank the Monroe, the staff, the bus drivers, everybody involved in that start has been fantastic. I think there are 6 employee Butler Tech programs at school. I know I talked to Mrs. Hartzell recently, and that program, Tom, that you've added, I don't know if he's over there, they added a kind of a life skill program for 9th and 10th graders. I mean, it starts from
Our financial literacies that
Yeah.
you guys.
how to do
Sounds right.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, she said it's very comprehensive, what a debit card is, how to use a day planner. There's some culinary stuff in there, teach them how to cook, stuff that when they go away at college, you're getting those phone calls and going, how do I do this again? So I think that's a great program, so. Excited to see what they do again this year, so, and continue to watch the growth. So, thank you. Any questions?
I just want to have a statement. I support Butler Tech 100%. I love that the kids can go and learn a trade and become proficient in skill sets. Because college isn't for everybody all of the time. And so have that ability to attend Butler Tech is just, I just love it.
Thank you.
I think it's good. It gets them started and ready for the workforce and learning skill sets, because I don't think there's enough students that are, that learn a skill set and can just go right out to the workforce and start being successful. So I
Thank
think it's
you.
really good.
That was one of the things that took me a while really to understand. Not everybody that goes to Butler Tech does not go to college. Like,
Right.
probably the majority of them do go to college. And it just either gets them ahead on what their college degree is, or, we had an engineering student win a national scholarship. It was a significant amount of money, and she was in our engineering program, and she stood up in front of the board and was embarrassed, but she was like, look, I don't want to do engineering. That's not what I'm going to go to
Right.
college to do. So that was an interesting, and a pretty mature thing to say in front of our board and everybody after she was just handed a very big scholarship. But she was honest. And that's exactly what
Yeah.
those life skills that they're learning there are for. Now, imagine if she would have went to, MIT and had 2 years worth of college and dropped out and figured she wanted to go into healthcare or whatever.
Exactly, yes.
Guess what? She's got a significant amount of debt to
Right.
figure out what they want.
Yeah, it gives them the opportunity to explore something they're interested in and then learn it's for me or it's not for me.
Exactly.
And it doesn't hurt their budget or their pocketbook at all. So I think it's
Thank you.
very good.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks, Brett.
Tim wants to know when that party class is going to start.
Let's go. All right, moving on to 3.3, Superintendent's Update.
All right, thank you, Mr. Grant. I do just want to, again, reiterate what a couple people have said. It's been a fantastic start to the school year. I can't thank the staff enough, teachers, administrators, bus drivers, and paraprofessionals, everybody involved has just worked really hard, and it's been a really great start. As Debbie mentioned earlier, we did have a staggered start for the first time, K-12. Overall, I think it was a huge success. We have been gathering data. We surveyed staff, and we're getting stuff out to some students to see, is it appropriate for every grade level and to continue, and do we want to? At this point, it was overwhelmingly with the staff that, yes, they want to continue it. But it's important to see, what the students think as well. So I don't think there's any question at the younger grades, but we'll see what it is at the upper grades as well. I do want to just point out that later in the agenda, you will see that I am recommending to add a school security officer to the district. I met with Chief Buchanan in the spring with the consideration of possibly adding a third SRO. And there's just such a shortage with police officers that he said they are understaffed in the city of Monroe. And he said, I can't make us even shorter by adding a third one. And so we came up with a plan, with the proximity to the police department and having one of our SROs over there. But, things happen, so we decided to change routes a little bit and talked a little bit with the superintendent over at Ross. They have only one school SRO, but they have a number of what they call school security officers, and they are retired police officers that still maintain their firearms qualifications so they can carry a firearm in the school, basically serve all the roles that an SRO would, except for making a formal arrest, which hopefully that doesn't happen at the primary building. And so, in addition, if for some reason they would need anything, close contact with our SROs, and like I said, that building is a block from the police station. So, with the shortage of police officers, there is not a shortage of retired police officers, and Ross said you'll have tons of qualified candidates that want it. they want to work school hours and they want to work for benefits. So I think hopefully when we post it, we get some quality candidates that fit that building. I think it would have been definitely a recommendation moving forward when we add the next school to add a third. So I think we're just getting a little bit ahead here. And if this model works, I think it's exciting. And I think it provides, more safety and security. And I'd rather err on the side of
Caution.
being extra safe than cutting back, so. In addition to that, I shared a couple of things in my board notes with some additional safety things that we've done over the summer. Those are things in our safety plan that we don't really advertise, but I just did want to mention that we continue to look at our facilities and our safety plans to upgrade and continue, school security is such an important thing, and we are always looking at what we're doing to try to improve, so. What's my next one? All right. Mr. Leeds' favorite topic here, the property value increases. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. At our last board meeting, the county auditor, Nancy Nix, was here, shared what she thought it might be, and about a week later it came out, and it was higher than what she had anticipated. We're actually at 41%, highest in the county, which is, it's a double-edged sword. It means people want to be in Monroe because it's a great place to live, and your property values are increasing, which is a good thing as a homeowner. The bad part of that, obviously, is when your value goes up, your taxes go up. And that is a pretty drastic increase. And I think it's a combination of a few things. One, obviously, price of everything has gone up drastically in the last few years. But in addition to that, I believe that the previous county auditor, it sounds like, did some things to keep it down falsely, and so this is a catch-up, and the state is saying no more. Talking with the Warren County auditor, they do them in cycles. I don't know if you remember, she shared that they do over a 3-year cycle. They do some of the counties. Butler is, one of the first ones. Then they'll do more counties next year, and then the rest of them the third year. So Warren County auditor that I spoke with said that Warren County is looking at probably somewhere between 35 and 40 also. So we're not unique with our property increases. That being said, we understand with the prices of everything else going up, it is a burden on our taxpayers. I know she shared in the newspapers, she thought that we should give the money back. I don't know if we're even legally allowed to do that. I think it would be something we would have to go back to the taxpayers, and I do think it's a little premature to do anything that drastic, just because when you hear 41%, you think, oh my goodness. Well, remember, you are taxed not on the full assessment of your property. You're taxed on the assessed value, which is only 35% of your value of your house and your home. So yes, it's an increase, and it's a big increase, but it's not, because it's only that 35% assessed value, it's not going to be as large as people are thinking. And I am going to get with her, and she needs to share, okay, if you have a $100,000 home, this is how much more you're going to be paying a month, so people know what is coming, instead of just saying 41%. That kind of is a false sense of what's coming, and it makes people nervous. The other piece of, not doing anything drastic yet is, 15 years ago when the recession hit, and our property values went way down. Nobody was saying, oh, the schools need more money because your property value assessments have gone down, and that drastically reduced all the funding. It also, your state foundation money is based on your local valuation. So the next budget, when it comes around and they look at our increased value, that's going to reduce our state funding. So I don't want to say, okay, we're going to reduce what's coming in, and then in 2 years, like, oh my goodness, we did that, and now our state foundation rolled back, and now we're going to have to go back to the taxpayers to ask for money. So There's also some pending legislation out there. I know Representative Thomas Hall has been working hard. For everything I've heard, I think that bill is basically dead in the water. But there is some things about giving, especially retired and veterans, fixed income people, to give them a break on some of it, which would reduce the money coming in. Basically, I'm sharing all this is because it's kind of early. We don't want to do anything drastic that would affect how we operate. As you guys understand, prices of everything have gone up. Prices of what we have to pay our employees, prices of everything that we use has drastically increased, just as everything else is. So our costs are rising. With all that being said, once the dust settles and we know what is exactly coming in and how it's going to affect our state foundation money, I do have some ideas that I will, at some point discuss with the board and recommend to you guys about doing some things for our families to give them a break. Just because we are in a position that with our cap going away and this increased revenue from property taxes, I think we will be able to do some things for our families. So until things are set and we know how all of those dominoes line up, I don't want to do anything that would, we have to look out for what's best for our kids and our district. So we can't roll money back without knowing the long-term effects of it yet. So
I think that's a testament to where we're at and what we've done over the years. There's a lot of other districts within they're having the same issues that might not have the flexibility to even start that conversation. So for me, I know that's something I've heard from the community is how's this going to affect what I pay to the schools, and knowing that we're going to look at that and try to find a solution that's going to be as positive as it can for everybody through something that's obviously well out of our control. Right. That's the type of district that we have. So I would agree, let's pause, let's get the facts together and know that we're going to work together on trying to find solutions where they may exist to take some of that burden off of folks that are going to be hit harder than others, of course.
Right, the biggest issue is communication from the state.
Yep.
They have to keep us informed as to what's going on and where we're at.
Yeah.
The same as any other school district.
Okay?
Okay, any other questions?
It's good.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Buskerud.
Robert.
All right, moving on to Section 4, Treasurer's Business. Item 4.1.
I recommend the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held on July 24th, 2023.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 4.2.
I recommend to approve the bond fund report for July 31st.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. And I saw that there was a note here that in July there were no receipts or expenses in the bond fund,
Correct.
so all the money is still where it's supposed to be?
Yes.
Fantastic. Any other questions? All right. Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 4.3.
It's recommended to approve the CCIP grant funds, which total $938,027.45 for FY24, and new funds to account for the grants.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions on 4.3? Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.4.
It's recommended to accept the commercial paper report for investments on June 30th, 2023.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions on 4.4?
Looks good.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 4.5.
It's recommended to property and liability insurance coverage for July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 in the amount of $61,110.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? This is existing, just a
Correct.
renewal.
We just went through the consortium, and we feel like it was a good deal,
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
good price.
All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 4.6.
Recommend to appoint the delegate and alternate for the annual business meeting to be held at 2:30 PM in the Union Station Ballroom at the Greater Columbus Convention Center.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Discussing this, I know we've always done this in the past where the legislative has done it. I know, Mr. Leeds, you historically have always gone
Right.
and have been the delegate. And I know for a fact, those dates, I am not going to be around. So I know Debbie is already going up. Is anyone else going up? If so, I would make a motion for you to be the delegate and Debbie, unless someone else is going up.
Okay,
Is
that's
anyone
fine.
else going up for those meetings?
I'm unsure yet. I might go, but if you guys are definitely going.
You're already,
I'm
you're
You're
confirmed.
registered.
I
Well,
just have to get registered in that. but
correct, but you already have it marked on your calendar.
Yes.
So,
Yep. That'll work.
We can take care of the registration for anybody that's interested in going.
Okay.
Just if you let Holly know, she can get you signed up.
were you planning on going
Yeah.
again this year?
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure.
Because I want to see some of the exhibits that they got, since we're building the building.
Okay,
Or talking about it.
okay, all right.
Okay.
So,
Do we have to make a motion for that?
yeah, go ahead, let's make a motion.
Okay. I make a motion to have Tom Leeds be the
Delegate?
delegate, right, and Mrs. Hagedorn will be
As
the alternate.
Alternate, yes. Okay,
Do we have
I
to motion
second
within the
that.
motion?
no.
We already motioned that we're going to assign
Yeah,
one.
yes, we already made a motion that we were assigning them, so I guess we really don't need a new motion. We'll just
yeah.
appoint it, and we'll approve it. Okay, any questions?
No.
You good with that, Mr. Carpenter?
Sure.
Do we follow?
We'll go with it.
We're good.
Okay, all right, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to Section 5, Superintendent's Personnel Business.
It's recommended the board approve the following resignations.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions?
Mr. Silverman's going to be our new swim coach.
Is he?
Can't find anyone, so.
I would just like to say thank you to Ian and Shannon for doing a great job.
Yeah,
Great job.
They did a great job with the swim team.
I can teach the butterfly. I can do that. I used to swim. All right. Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.2.
It's recommended the board approve hiring the following new employees.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
Looks good.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And do we have someone present?
New employees? Anyone? I don't
No.
think so.
No? Okay. I didn't know.
Sorry, Dave.
I just grabbed them just in case. I was just curious. All right.
There goes your whole week, man.
You know what? Who wants a pen? Someone want a pen?
Throw 'em to the peanut gallery.
All right, moving on to 5.3.
It's recommended the board approve the following extracurricular contracts for the 23-24 school year.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions on the extracurricular contracts? All right. Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.4.
It's recommended the board approve corrections to the previous agenda. It was just a incorrect step in salary was placed with a correct amount.
Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.5.
It's recommended the board approve a job description for the school security officer and the career and counseling success liaison.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions on 5.5?
Is there any major differences between the job description itself as, from an SRO compared to the school safety?
Primarily the same. It's just that one is an active duty and the other one is not.
Non-active.
But the job itself is
Primarily the same.
identical
Yep. Almost.
for all intended
Yep.
purposes?
Okay. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.6.
It's recommended the board approve the salary schedule for the school security officer.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions on 5.6? Go ahead and please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.7.
It's recommended the board approve the following salary degree increases.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Had some teachers busy working over the summer.
Yes, congratulations to those teachers. Very good. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.8.
It's recommended the board approve the internal transfer to a higher classification.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.9.
It's recommended the board approve paraprofessional extra supervision for the mornings and interoffice mail and student-attended school days.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions on 5.9? Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.10.
It's recommended the board approve the following substitute, just the one paraprofessional sub right now.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.11.
It's recommended the board approve the following gate event workers for the athletic department.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
I have a question about this announcer guy. No, it's okay.
That's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
Yeah,
Oh, we let him in
Tim's
so
pretty
far,
good.
we might as well
Tim's
continue.
pretty good guy. All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Abstain? Motion carried. Item 5.12.
It's recommended the board approve the following teachers to receive stipends for their additional prep periods per the MEA contract.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions on this? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Moving on to Section 6, Superintendent's Other Business, 6.1.
It's recommended the board approve the following donations.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
Thank you for the donation.
Thank you.
Yeah. What is, I'm assuming the drink system, is that what we have on the field, basically, at games where the players are drinking out of? Is that a new one of those, Eric?
What the boosters are donating towards? The water filling?
Just on the field? Okay, I was just curious. I didn't know if it was something totally different other than that.
It's just the one we had run its course, and we needed to.
What did you say earlier, that things are going up in price? Holy heck, I bought one of those like 10 years ago. It was like $1,500. So thank you to the boosters.
Yep.
All right. Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.2.
It's recommended the board approve the following pricing agreement with Ever-Driven Technologies.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? I do have one. I know this is the one where, hold on. Isn't this the one where that's changed names? It's
Yep.
Ever-Driven. Is everything else stayed the same? The pricing is gone? Is the pricing? Last year? Okay.
They've been the most reliable ones.
Okay.
And that's tweaked it.
Okay. Very good. Anything else? Okay. Please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.3.
It's recommended the board approve the contract with the Committee for Children for a 3-year license of Second Step for the elementary and junior high, in the amount of $17,077.59.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.4.
It's recommended the board approve bus stops as presented and authorize the superintendent to make changes as needed to stops if required during the year. This is the annual adoption required by board policy and Ohio Revised Code.
May I have a, we're just saying, do we have to do this one? I'm just kidding. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
You missed out.
Any questions on the bus routes?
Gotta be quick.
Do we have, I think I might have asked this before, and maybe it was a little premature, as it relates to the system change that we had, where folks can enroll and unenroll. Do we have any type of analysis on?
So I talked
That-
to the head of our transportation. Are you talking about pre-enrolling so what they do, what they had previously done that a lot of districts don't do, some of them route, and just that's what the route is for the whole year. They, even before it was pre-registered, they would route, and as the year would go on, they would start to check if those people were never there, and they would contact the families and do it. This just makes it a lot more efficient. So instead of having the routes settled by, in a previous district, they didn't get them settled till Christmas. And now that they can, with the pre-registered, it's just much more efficient, and less, it's a much timelier process for them, so.
Yeah, I haven't heard a ton about shortages on bus I mean, that was and I know it's still an issue.
I have
but-
to say, we're a unicorn. I don't know what it is.
Right.
Well, I do know what it is. We have great kids, and we have a great transportation department. We're currently have all routes filled, and I don't want to say it out loud, but we are plenty, we have no shortages right now.
Good.
And unless something drastic happens, we don't foresee having to cancel any routes, anything. We are in great, great shape. And I had this discussion with a county superintendent's meeting last Friday. I was speaking with a neighboring district, and they are dealing with transportation issues, and it all comes down to who your leadership is in that department. And we have a front office staff in our transportation department that is just great. They work with the drivers, they work with parents. That's what it's all about. It's the same company, but they have
Different people.
different people, and they've just been dealing with mess after mess, and they can't find drivers. So we are very fortunate. And,
Good, that's really good to hear. I know we've obviously taken some measures to improve compensation
Yes. Yep.
and make things better for our drivers. I hope that they're feeling that value, because they're definitely valued.
Yeah.
Obviously, the work between Peterman and
Yeah.
the admin, yourself, I love that we're not hearing about that, because I do see other friends
Oh, yeah.
on social media posting about, we're hiring, and we haven't had to do that recently, so.
She actually said she hasn't even advertised for a
Good.
number of months. She hasn't needed to. Because not only are our routes filled, we have a good number of substitute drivers as well, so.
Good.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Any other questions?
No. Good job, thank you.
Yep.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.5.
It's recommended the board approve a resolution to determine transportation impractical and a contract for payment in lieu of.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Nope. Please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 6.6.
It's recommended that the board approve a contract with Restoration Ranch in the alternative school with Warren County there's 3 different students, and the total there is 56.7.
Okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
We supply transportation on that?
To be determined. Right now, there's only 3, and there's 4 now. Oh, we've got another one. So we just got an email, so we've got a 4th. So the Restoration Ranch is it a company, Nancy, or it's?
It's a therapy, residential facility.
They get court-placed with this facility, and from kids, parent-placed. Or parent, okay. But it's for kids that are really struggling in either the court system or homes, and they just happen to be in Monroe. So they usually come in, and depending on the ages, they find a placement for them, and then it's a whole rehabilitation thing. And it's usually not for the entire year. It depends. Year to year and a half, but
If they're able to stay.
it sounds like they do really good work with these kids, and a couple of them are going back to their home schools from previous years, correct?
The one we had last
Yeah.
year, we did come to us in person, did go back. to
Okay,
October,
so,
December.
yeah. So it's a really great program, but it is also an expensive program, and it's not us necessarily, but it's in our district, so we are responsible for the payment of it, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Do we need to increase it to 4 students?
I don't know if we can.
We'll have to get another contract.
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
have
have
to
to-
get another
we'll do it on the
Okay.
next one.
All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.7.
It's recommended to approve the calendar for the 24-25 school year.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any
got our-
questions on the school
We got our
calendar?
dates straight again this year, right?
I think we're good to go. The day after Easter seemed to be a big hit, so that's back in there. And for 24-5, we're finally back to 2 full weeks at holiday break, winter break, because Christmas has just been on a weird date the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 6.8.
Just recommended the board approve an out-of-state cross-country trip. It grades 9, 12. It's just to Louisville, and they'll be there and back in the same day.
Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
I think we're on delay reaction today.
Sleeping. They had dinner beforehand.
Oh.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Buskirk. All right, before we move to section 7, we'll go with comments from the board. Start with you down on the end, Mr. Leeds.
Well, I want to reiterate what's been said by many people tonight, what a smooth start to the school year. And I got to tell you, all I'm hearing from the general public is they really didn't even know what happened. It's just so smooth going in, and with the athletics and everything starting on time and everything, it was great. And getting a lot of comments about some neighboring districts. It was a fight to get things going and everything, so it's a smooth transition, which is great. And look forward to some good athletics. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Mr. Fulham?
Excellent. It's time for my high fives from around the high.
Give him
If I can speak today, we'll see. All right, high fives to all staff on a fantastic start to the school year. We've got some of the very best in Hornet Country. It's always an exciting time to begin a new academic year, but also filled with lots of nervousness from parents and students. I've personally heard several individual stories about how our staff welcomed a nervous student into a new building or classroom, leaving them with a giant smile on their face at the end of the day. Thank you to each of you for continuing to make Monroe the best school district in the county. High five to the Monroe High School Marching Band and Color Guard for an outstanding start to the season. It's a very special group that we have, and it's always a great time getting to hear and see our student musicians on the field under the Friday night lights. Excuse me. High five to the students who stayed well after the home football game to pick up trash throughout the home stands. I personally witnessed 2 students alone in the stands at nearly 10 p.m., walking the aisles and cleaning up after spectators. This is not uncommon for our students, and it's awesome to see the pride that they take in keeping our facilities looking great. I hope that everyone has a great week as we look forward to a long weekend for the Labor Day holiday. That's all.
Mr. Carpenter?
Wow. I'm not even ready yet. Jeez. That's incredible. Yeah, I just want to say, congratulations to the staff. I'm sure all the kids were really excited to get back into the buildings. I know my kids were just thrilled to come back to school. But yeah, they've had a very smooth transition. Greta's in 6th grade, so she's been doing the 4-class rotation, and she loves it. Can't wait for the safety patrol to be here, because Greta is a safety patrolman.
Oh, nice.
So I can't wait so she can just rub that in Mr. Guida's face. It'll be a good time.
Yes.
But yeah, I just want to say, keep up the great work, everybody. And as they said, it's great to have our facilities being used by our athletics, and it's fun to get out and watch a game. So if you guys don't get an opportunity, make it an opportunity. Go watch a game. Tuesday, Thursday nights, soccer plays. It's always a good thing to go watch. And Lucy's been playing volleyball. I've never watched volleyball, and Lucy's been playing junior high volleyball. That is one of the most exciting sports to watch. It is just constant. It's crazy. I never would have thought it was.
Yes.
But that's fun. But yeah. So go watch a volleyball game too. But all right, Debbie, your turn.
I would like to ditto everything that they all have said. I'd also like to give a shout out to the new website that we have. It looks fabulous. With the school website and the athletic version as well, having that interaction, so much easier to navigate. I'm sure that all the parents that are going to be using are going to be very appreciative of that. So I think that was a great job. Great job. So
Yep.
that's all I have.
Okay. Mine's brief. As the start of the school year, when my email is pretty quiet and my phone doesn't ring, that means we've had a successful start of the school year. So, and I've had not one phone call, not one email, so that's fantastic. So, yeah, knock on wood. So it's been good. So you guys have done a great job, so appreciate everyone's efforts on this successful start of the school year. And with that, that is it. So I will move on to Section 7. I closed my packet too quick. Section 7, 7.1, make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:15. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Oh, now they pipe up.
I was waiting.
Tie goes to the right.
I was wondering how long it was going to take to get a second.
All right. Please call the roll.
Who seconded? Who did you get?
Mr.
Oh, you gave it
Leeds.
to Tom? Veteran move, Tom.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Everyone have a great rest of your evening.
Great job, Nancy. Thank you.
Yes.
Good job, Nancy.
To your point about volleyball,
It was, I love volleyball.
we used to, I guess a long time ago when I first started announcing basketball, which was like 11 years ago. We used to host the high school section. The announcement was that volleyball wasn't available. So who was the AD at the time? I think it was Tony.